Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking time out on a Saturday evening to join our discussion. This is first of our webinar series on topics related to body, mind, and beyond. My name is Vivek, and I'm the lead for Bharat Yoga Vidya Kendra, a yoga institute founded by Shriyam, headquartered in Madanampalli. The topic for today's webinar is mindful parenting and importance of yoga. I would like to start off this discussion with Viraj. Viraj, you are the co-founder and the principal of the Peepal Grove School. You have been in this field as an educator for 22 years, and you have interacted with a lot of parents. Do you have any observations on what this generation of parents is doing right or wrong?
Good evening, Vivek, and good evening to all our panelists and all the people who've joined this discussion. Looking forward to hopefully a meaningful and a relevant discussion to all our panelists. So, to answer your question, Vivek, I think what I have seen, and I think most of us know, that the in today's generation, mostly it is double income, a family consisting of double income, single child. This is a very common phenomena, and so in some cases it's double income, double child. And also in some cases you also have the grandparents who are in the house. So you have this. Okay, so I'll take this case of a single child because that's increasingly becoming the norm. You see, the what happens now is that you have the aspirations of the grandparents and the parents, and rightly so, but on the shoulders of a single person, a single young child who may be 3 or 4 years old. Because of course, when they are babies, we all have a great time with our child. I mean, even today, the most precious thing, if you ask any parent, is the time that they spend with their child when they're really a baby. But as they grow up, as they start growing up, often the parenting can become stressful, taxing, and often parents find that the child is not obeying, not not cooperating, and so on and so forth. And this is, I think, something which I find these discussions happen a lot when I'm dealing with parents in my school. These discussions do happen quite often. So I'll stop at that for now. We can always look at why these things are happening as we go along in the discussion.
Yeah, good point, Viraj. And we have other panelists as well here today. Chitra, you have been a yoga teacher for the last 15 years, and I know over these years you have trained adults, you have been a corporate yoga trainer, you have taught children, over a wide age group. You are also a mother of two young boys. So, I would like to know, as a parent and as a yoga teacher, what are your views on Viraj's thoughts and his comments?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and hello to everybody who's joined us on the webinar and to the panelists. Hi, Viraj and Ambika. Yes, to begin with, I think parenting today is definitely a big challenge. If you look at our grandparents, it was way easier. They didn't really think too much. They just went with the flow, I think. But today, because we try to do many tasks at the same time and are leading very busy lives. The focus on parenting has become more of trying to transfer the same goals, targets, and competitiveness that we see in the corporate sector at home. And that's what we expect our children also to match up. So taking on from a yoga teacher perspective, I started my yoga journey actually only after I became a parent. And that was more from a fitness perspective. And what I realized is that yoga has so many things bundled up in it, which is way beyond asanas. So asanas is just one aspect. So today, when I look at yoga, it is a way of life itself. So everything, all the interactions, from the kind of lifestyle to the food, everything revolves around the knowledge of yoga is so deep that if one starts integrating these tools slowly over a period of time, they will see that it also shows in the way parenting happens at home. Um, Many of the issues we see today in terms of parenting is primarily because of uh, a lack of energy or an imbalance. When I say imbalance, it means the parent is either physically stressed, mentally stressed, or completely emotionally drained out. And that is why the communication with the child or the connection with the child doesn't seem to happen the way it should. So yoga is again going back to that tool that brings about inner balance, because once that inner harmony is settled in the parent, automatically that harmony starts exuding with the child. So connection and collaboration happens when that inner harmony is established as a parent, right? And so yeah, so that's a little bit on how yoga can help parents today.
Yeah, I mean, a good point that you mentioned, Chitra, and also with, I mean, few years back when COVID took on, with increased use of technology, and with parents now increasingly working from home, I think the lines have blurred between personal life and professional life, and parents are always working now, and the expectation from children is also now to be in front of their systems, always doing assignments. So yeah, it is a challenge, and spending a lot of time in front of technology and computer screens can be very uh, exhausting emotionally and physically. Thanks, Chitra. Now our third panelist, Ambika, you have been a teacher at the People Grove School. You have been a storyteller, and you are a yoga teacher for the kids. What are your, some of your innovative methods that you adopt in teaching, and how do you feel that this is relevant in today's time?
Um, Hi, everyone. Nice to be a part of this discussion. This has always been a pet topic for me, but I didn't think that I'd get involved in this discussion in this manner. So happy to be a part of this discussion. So I'll start by saying that as a child, I hated school, I hated teachers, and mostly because of how overbearing teachers were and how structured schools were. So most of what I know today is because of the time that I spent teaching at the Peepal Grove School and having worked with amazing teachers like Viraj, Sunandaka, and the other teachers there. So coming back to your point on the innovative methods, I'd like to, I mean, I remember what Sir says about, Sri M says about kids and dealing with children. He says that we need to understand the child first and remember that children are sometimes wiser than grown-ups. And they're also more creative, curious, and they have a lot more energy. So I usually get into my class with this understanding that they are smarter than me. And I'm just facilitating their learning. So I try to integrate a lot of different activities like art, storytelling, and I engage with them one-on-one to get them interested in the topic. But I'd also like to hear from Viraj on what the ideal role of education and teachers is in the growth of the child, and what do you do differently at the People Grove School?
Thanks for that, Ambika. See, what I can say, at the heart of a child growing, right? We all want our children to be the best versions of themselves. We have that aspiration that our children, the potential that we see, and undoubtedly we see that today's children, I think most people will agree, have a higher potential than what previous generations had. They have a certain amount of energy that they come with, which is to be tapped properly. Now, what research shows us, what research really shows us about children and their well-being, is there are three fundamental needs that every child has. Okay, the need for relatedness, the need for competence, and the need for autonomy. Now, if we are mindful, and that's what we're talking about, mindful parenting, and even mindful as a teacher, I need to be mindful that these three needs of my child, if they are met, and these are not easy to meet, of course, but if we are mindful that these three needs are the important needs of a child, then it all takes off from there. This is the the base, a strong base which we can lay for the child, a kind of a very comfortable environment we can lay for the child, which involves the first part, if you want me to talk about, is relatedness. What is relatedness? It's basically about me being empathetic with the child feeling that this adult, whether it's my parent or it's my teacher, is able to put himself or herself in my shoe and understands what my present needs are. That feeling of relatedness is something that can really uh, be very powerful. Second thing is competence. Obviously, now every child wants to feel successful. There is no child in this world, this is something I keep asking my parents, is there any child who doesn't want to succeed? I mean, so do we really need to give them that lecture or keep reminding them of the need to succeed? There is no child I have seen till today who really doesn't want to succeed. But what is it that thwarts them? What is it that makes them not motivated? Is a need for competence. And there is a lot I can speak about this, but you see, competence means every child should be given an opportunity to succeed. Therefore, the need to customize learning for your child. Therefore, the need not to compare your child with your neighbor. Or, of course, in the classroom, not to compare your child. Already, children are comparing. It's not as if children are not doing this. They don't need an adult to add to this. Okay, that's as far as competence is concerned. Giving every child an opportunity to succeed. And also, if the not starting too early, a lot of research is showing. Okay, by the way, I can bring this in that the two countries where the learning outcomes are highest in the schools, okay, are Finland and this particular part of China, Shanghai, which is a particular province. These two countries which come out 1 and 2 in rankings year after year, what is common in them? They start schooling, that is reading, writing, and math for children only at the age of 7. So there is something to think about for Indian parents. I mean, commonly in India, we want our children to start early. And sometimes we start them off in these things, reading, writing, tables, memorizing tables at the age of 4. And of course, I'm sure we have seen some of our neighboring children who are able to do this at 3. And we think, oh God, our child is somewhere falling behind. We need to take a step back. We need to be to see that we don't get uh, anxious because of this, and see that the need for competence is there in a child. The third thing, a very, very important thing, is autonomy. Children, especially today's children, have a need to feel that they are the drivers of their learning, of their needs. And our role as teachers as well as parents has to become more of an enabler, a supporter, rather than us driving them. Okay, so this is the approach that we try very hard to all the time bring in our school. Of being a teacher's role in our school is one of relating to children first. So seeing the child as a human being first. Second, seeing the child also as a learner who himself or herself wants to learn, and seeing what is it that is thwarting this natural motivation to learn. And third, enabling the child that kind of autonomy in their learning. Autonomy is sometimes, and I can come to this later because I don't want to speak too much, but autonomy can sometimes be misconstrued as not being accountable. And I think that's not true. A person who's more autonomous, it is found that they are also more accountable for their behavior, learning, etc. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, thanks, Viraj. I mean, four key points you mentioned. The three important things to remember, that is relatedness, competence, and autonomy. I think as a follow-up, I would like to quiz you a little bit about competence, especially in today's time where the competitiveness is very high. Parents starting off IIT coachings, much earlier. The cutoff rate at universities and colleges are high, and the expectation from children in today's time is also quite high. So maybe we'll dwell on it later. And I see there are a lot of questions coming in from our viewers, so please keep those questions coming in. We have a dedicated session at the end, about 20 minutes to half an hour, where we would like to interact with you. So please keep those questions coming. And the fourth point that you mentioned, Viraj, is mindfulness. And I think that's a good transition to yoga, where Chitra, I would like to hear, from you as to how yoga can help parents. how has it helped you? I don't know how much you are able to translate that experience and teachings to your kids. So your view on how yoga has helped kids, and do you think you could probably give some tools which could help children? So three questions at you.
Right. Yes. Yes. So as far as mindful parenting goes, I think the first golden rule I would say is lead by example, which means that as parents, it's very easy to look upon our children and expect a lot of things. But if we ourselves are not going to be following those things, then it, we are not getting anywhere. So that's the first thing when it comes to being mindful about parenting. As far as yoga is concerned, there are so many tools in yoga which I personally have been adding at different stages, right? So from asanas to keep the physical body fit, because only when you are physically fit can you match up to the energy levels of your child. And today's, we know the children are a bundle of energy. Unless we are able to get down to their level, connect with them, run around with them, play with them, then we are not establishing the connection there. So a fit parent is a fit body leads to a fit parent. That's, I think, one of the key things I'd like to say. So keeping not just physical fitness, but also mental fitness and emotional fitness. So which means there are other tools in yoga like pranayama, which is breath work, and chanting, which is again focused on keeping the mental and emotional health in stability. Um, Also, when we remember that what is the kind of energy we bring into the space when we are with the child, if we are mindful about that, right? So because very often what happens is, like, say, I'm just giving you an example. When you get back home from work and you've had a rough day, so what's the kind of energy that you're coming home with? Obviously you're stressed out, you're carrying that baggage of that whole day with you. So if one is able to spend 10-15 minutes in just quiet reflection, either in asana or pranayama or any of these practices, it helps one come back to zone, to the ground level, where we are able to feel more centered when we are interacting with our children. We are also not operating from a space where we are just judging them, or carrying that same emotion when we are interacting with our children. So that way, yoga is one practice which helps us feel more centered, more calm, and more in control of situations. So rather than all the time reacting to situations, we look at them more objectively, and we are able to respond and handle the situation. The other common thing that I've also seen in parenting today is the concept of timeout. Very often I've seen in whenever you go to these public places I see parents just saying timeout, timeout. So I was very curious as to, this lingo or language has become so common among parents, where it's like immediately the child is punished for doing something which is, off the track. However, I think if parents start uh, replacing time out with time in. What I mean when I say time in is when they start meditating or doing these practices where they can calm themselves down, then they will also connect with their child better. So the number of times a parent has to say time out will start reducing drastically. So spending that time to go inward, which means reflecting on themselves, resolving their unresolved issues and baggages that they tend to carry with themselves, really helps the parent, feel more grounded when they are interacting with their children. One more key thing is consistency. So as parents, we also tend to, one day we say, okay, follow all these rules, and next day we slip in all those rules. So being consistent about whatever we expect from our child, right? The golden rule is if we can have a daily routine set, because children love routines, and we are consistent about those routines. We set the boundaries and we give them the freedom to express, then the interactions become more open, and the connection also becomes stronger. So I think parents can feel more comfortable when they start giving at least 10-15 minutes of their day to a practice like yoga. which can, first of all, energize them because they need that energy to keep up with their children and to also be operate from a calmer state of mind. So they lead happier lives.
Yeah. Good point. Viraj, I'm curious. You are also a parent, and I know that you practice yoga. So, how much of a difference do you see as a parent and as a teacher? Practicing. I'm sure there are days that you are unable to because of your busy schedule. But are you able to see a difference when you practice and you don't practice? Can you throw some light on that?
Absolutely, absolutely, Vivek. I think that I can say with a very high degree of conviction that there are times, there are days when if I am unable to do my practice, which includes meditation, some amount of pranayama as well as yoga. The days when I'm not doing it, I see myself slipping as an educator and as a parent. Actually, I see myself becoming more impatient. I see myself losing my temper more easily. I see myself, what Chitra just said, reacting to situations instead of responding to them. Therefore, I would definitely say, Vivek, that I have become more and more conscious of the need for me to do my regular practice to be more centered in myself, become a more mindful parent and a mindful educator. So I would
Mm-hmm.
definitely say that this is my experience, mm, that there is a significant difference that yoga can make and has made in my life, and I definitely feel it's a very important tool that I use as an educator as well as a parent.
Yeah, I also, the earlier points that you mentioned, relatedness, competence, and autonomy. We actually have a very interesting question from one of our viewers. Uh, the question is, how do we define relatedness to young parents, and how to support them to understand that teaching to say no is okay? I think this is a very good question. Let me repeat it once again. How do we define relatedness to young parents, and how to support them to understand, and helping them to to say no, and that saying no is okay?
You want me to respond to that? Okay.
Yes, yeah. It's
Okay.
towards you. Yeah.
See, one very important thing to understand, and research shows this over and over again. We underestimate the understanding of fairness and justice which children have. Very young children, even 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, have a sense of fairness. So I think when we say no, if the child perceives it as being fair, a fair no, and like Chitra said, a consistent no, it works. It definitely works with children. But when the consistency is lacking, or when the child feels that it is being imposed, a certain idea or a certain rule is being imposed on that child, then the no does not work. But certainly, like Chitra said, children like routines, children like structures, but they like fair structures. And I think that is where, as a young parent, also needs to sometimes be flexible and learn along the way. We will be willing to learn as a parent, that you will learn what structures works for your child. And if you have two children, I'm sure, because Chitra has two children over here, sometimes you need to have different structures for different children. Different things work with different children. So having that keeping that in mind, that what works for one child, let me arrive at that, let me learn to build that structure for that child. So again, being mindful, being introspective works. But yes, I agree with you, that does not mean that children do not need structures, or being too liberal as a parent is not what is implied over here. One can be a
Hmm.
strict parent, but also one can be a loving parent, one can be an affectionate parent, one can also be a playful parent and yet be strict. This is all possible.
Right. It's a good point, Viraj. Just shifting gears, to yoga for kids. I mean, we have looked at how yoga can help parents and how yoga can help teachers. Ambika, for you, and this is also some of the views and questions that are coming in from the audience as well. What are your thoughts on yoga for kids? And there is, I think, in general, a perception that yoga is for old people. How do you think yoga can be relevant for kids? just your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So I think even for all of us, like when we were younger, the general idea was, or the perception was, that yoga is for enlightenment, that it is something spiritual. But I believe that it's all about how you present it to kids. If it's made relevant to them and it makes sense to them, then why wouldn't they practice it? For example, I think as teachers and as parents, we often catch ourselves telling kids to pay attention, to concentrate, but we don't tell them how to do it or how it's done, right? This is where yoga comes in. Practices like Trataka, breath control, naturally improve concentration. And certain asanas like Ardha Matsyendra asana regulates hormones and reduces anger, restlessness, all of which we are dealing with even as adults and as kids as well. So the only thing is, I mean, something that we need to remember is that yoga is not like taking a Saradon tablet. It's not instant gratification. It is slow and steady, like the tortoise in the tortoise and hare race, where the tortoise finally wins. So I think if you remember that, and this is the approach to yoga, kids will love it.
Yeah,
Can I just add something here, Vivek, to what
yes.
Ambika said? Because I'm seeing a lot of questions about young children and how to imbibe yoga in their lives and all. I think it's important over here also. One is to have people around. If adults around them are doing yoga, children, especially young children imitate. Children who are below 8, generally that is the age at which children actually imitate their parents, imitate their adults. So if they see parents around them doing yoga, practicing every day, you will find them imitating. I mean, I've seen that with my own daughter. Sometimes she'll be on top of me while I'm doing yoga. That's a different matter, but it happens. Once you go beyond that age, I think you need to be, again, it needs to be, the relatedness matters. Children need to understand that it's not being imposed on them. And also, again, that's the age at which they immediately call you out. If you are not doing yoga and you don't do all these things and you are getting angry with them all the time, and then you expect them to do yoga and be very patient, it doesn't work. So it's a challenging thing, and I think we need to see that it's not so easy. And sometimes it's okay for them to do yoga maybe once a week, twice a week. Start slow is what I would say. Don't be in too much of a hurry. It's okay if the children get some sense of yoga, see some benefits of yoga, but not entirely in their teens. It's okay. Maybe they will start doing yoga seriously in their college years. I think a lot of children nowadays, I find a lot of our students who were not very keen on yoga when they were in school have told me that no, once they've gone to college, they have realized that it really helps them in many ways, and that's perfectly all right.
Yeah,
Just to
it's a
add
good
to
point. I
that,
think.
I just have one point to add to that. Also, in our system, right, at the age of 7 and 8, the Gayatri Mantra is taught, the Surya Namaskara is taught. And once the introduction happens, I think, like Viraj said, they can come back to it later, but never as a force. Otherwise, it leaves a bad taste. None of us liked being forced into anything. Same goes with yoga.
Yeah, and one more point here that I'd like to add is how we can present yoga to kids. See, very often kids retract from yoga practice because it's presented to them as a very slow, boring process. So as long as we can bring variety to yoga, because again, yoga has that variety. It's the entire focus is how we build awareness and mindfulness in our children. So bring in aspects like, maybe mandala arts, making them draw or even chanting, creating animal poses, introducing theater along with yoga. So there are innovative ways in which yoga can be presented to children, so they embrace it and they also have fun at the same time, rather than make it a very serious class.
Yeah, I mean, great discussions. I know, we can continue, with this train of thought, but there are some very interesting questions and comments that are coming to us from our viewers. I think I will start picking them up one by one, and I will try and channel it to the right panelists. Let me start with, very simple but a very interesting and important question. Maybe I think Viraj and Chitra, for both of you, the question is, how do we improve confidence in children? Maybe Viraj, if you can take it up from an academic point of view, and Chitra, if you could comment from practice or some tips around this.
So it's a complicated thing, this confidence. It has many layers to it. But I think if you were to simplify it, there is one of the factors. There may be other factors. They pick up certain things from their parents. If you have a parent who's not very confident, that can also come to you as a child. There certain genetic factors may be there, but those are factors which are not in our control. As an educationist, what I can do is competence, is giving a child the opportunity to succeed, is to be able to customize a task so that the chances are there for a child to succeed. And then not giving false praise, another very important factor. Of course, punishments, I think now most parents understand that punishments are not the way to go, and most of our schools in India are moving in that direction. But even rewards can not are not necessarily great motivators. Rewards give you extrinsic motivation, but what you want in your child is intrinsic motivation. That's self-confidence. When we are saying it's an intrinsic motivation to learn, that comes from from genuine appreciation of a movement seen in a child, of an improvement seen in a child. Seeing that, in educational parlance, it's called formative assessment. But those are jargons. But I'm going to go underneath that jargon. What it means really, essentially, is seeing the progress in your child and also believing in your child. Now, believing is slightly different from expectations. Children can sometimes be burdened by high expectations from parents. But having belief in your child is something different. A teacher who has high belief in their child, or a parent who believes in their child, believes that the child, whatever their present challenges may be, will overcome them with the support of me as a teacher or myself as a parent. So I think the belief in your child is very important. And not one very important thing which I've learned as an educator is differentiating between the behavior and the child. The behavior may not be appropriate in situations, but that doesn't mean the child is not okay. Every child has goodness in them. Recognizing that goodness in the child gives you very high opportunity to improve self-confidence, to give them to improve their motivation levels. That is very, very important. So again, relatedness, competence, autonomy comes back to that.
Mm-hmm. And Chitra?
Yeah, and as far as self-confidence or the confidence levels of a child goes, I think a lot is to do with the inner workings of the child. So when there is probably a sense of insecurity, or when there is some emotional disturbance, or there is some peer pressure. Now, confidence issues come because primarily there's something very intrinsic and deep in the child. So as far as yoga is concerned, yoga is again going back to the tool of building resilience, right? And to be able to allow the child to gain that confidence over a period of time. And of course, this happens only with the support of the parent, of the teacher, of the caregiver, where again we go back to the keyword of connection, establishing connection with the child, understanding why is the child not confident, where is the gap, what is the gap. Maybe maybe the parent is unable to spend time, or maybe so there needs to be a proper communication and connection to identify what is it that is causing a lack of confidence in the child, and give the appropriate tools that will help engage the child and boost his or her confidence. So I think, yes, again, going back to collaboration, connection, right? So again, the concept of helicopter parenting is very common today, right? So everything is outsourced to somebody else to watch over the child, to feed the child. So so what is happening? It's a lack of connection, and there could be so many things that the child might want to express, but doesn't have that window or space to be able to express. So expression is very, very key when it comes to children. So giving them that, one-pointed, again, it goes back to dharana of yoga, where we say give one-pointed attention. So that that same thing transcends to giving one-pointed attention to your child. So when you're with your child, make sure you are only with your child, not with your phone, not with your computer, So that way you slowly establish your connection and give those windows of time during the day where you can establish that communication, connect with them, and that will help build confidence over a period of time.
Can I bring in one more thing over here, Vivek? I hope it won't be short. See,
Sure.
one more thing which comes in is, we have high expectations as parents. We have high expectations from our children. It comes from the aspirations that we have and so on and so forth. But it's important, like I said, firstly to look at it more as a self belief in the child than expectation. Second thing is also, we must not always, when we work hard, we come back home maybe 7 o'clock, some of us come back home at 8 o'clock, and then immediately you have first question you ask the child is, what is your homework, how did you do at school? You're trying to kind of ask for a report card from the child. It also helps children, and that has impact on self confidence levels, has an impact on self esteem of children. What is important sometimes for us as working parents is to be playful with children. When you come back home, first thing is play with them. I mean, free play, you could so that also has a very big impact on children, which is often underestimated.
Mhm. Yeah, good. I mean, yeah, good questions, and I'm really enjoying your responses. And in the last few minutes, there are a lot of questions coming in. I request our viewers to keep sending the questions. We'll see. We'll try to answer as many as we can. And even if you're unable to answer these questions in this webinar, we'll definitely get back to you with a response even after the webinar gets over today. Okay, so now moving to the next question, Ambika, I think I would like to pose this question to you. The question is, would it be possible to teach yoga to kids in a language they relate to, and have strategies to recollect, like a tale you shared? I know you have already spoken about this, but I think if you can elaborate a little bit on this, and also comment a little on how can we introduce meditation to a 4-year-old. I don't know, maybe it's too young an age, but do you recommend that meditation is taught at such a young age? Your thoughts for this parent?
As far as introducing yoga in a language they understand, do they mean in a language or in a manner that they understand? I don't understand.
I'm guessing a manner, maybe
manner,
not
right?
a.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So, so the yoga course that we are launching, right, in coming in April, I think next Sunday, the plan we have is to have a lot of stories. So the asanas already have stories around them, and most of the asanas are inspired by animal poses. So when they are introduced as an animal pose, along with the story of its origin or where it gets its name from, they're already interested. And we are not aiming for perfection. We don't want to do gymnastics in our class. In the sense, we are not trying to get them into complicated poses, because children already know how to do that. Okay, so we are not trying to improve that in any way. We are just going to channelize it in a way where they understand that there are more ways that they can use their body, and that it helps them in kind of bringing the focus back on their mind. So that will be the approach in our class. And this is for ages 8 to 15. Now, coming to the second part of the question, or the second question, I personally don't think that ages up to 6, 7 need any meditation or yoga. If you notice them, they're already doing it. Most toddlers are already in asanas. And even 3-year-olds are already sitting in, they're probably doing better asanas than you. They can sit in Padmasana, they can lift themselves up, which we can't do at our age, right? So I don't think there's anything required for a 3 to 4-year-old, definitely. That's why I mentioned that in our system, At age 7 and 8 is when mantra is first introduced and Surya Namaskara is introduced. So that's the right age. That's
Okay. Yeah. Also, just to add to your response, we have a nice comment from Ashwati, where she says the first step where my daughter was introduced to yoga was through one YouTube channel, Cosmic Kids Yoga, where it is practiced through storytelling. She got so much interested that now the channel is not required to practice yoga. She herself teaches us whatever she has learned from there. We just have to be a student for her. So it goes on to Viraj. What you were talking on how we create that atmosphere for the child. Okay, there is a very interesting question um, by two attendees. I think Chitra, I'll pass the first one to you, and the second one I'll open it up to both you and Viraj. So Chitra, to you, where is this? Yeah. Yeah, so the question is, my elder one is 16, and when I said that I'm attending this session, mindful parenting, I was asked, "Aren't you a little late by 17 years to learn this now?" I was thrown aback when I heard this, but I'm still keen to know how I can manage teens to focus and practice yoga.
Right. So
So
interestingly,
this, I think, yeah,
yeah,
this is for both you and Viraj. If you can, I know you have a 16-year-old, so if you
exactly.
can.
Yes. So interestingly, I'd also like to tell this parent that one time when I did a mindful parenting session, I had a person who was 57 years of age who had a 22-year-old daughter who attended my session, who felt that at that age also there was something that was missing in her parenting style, and she wanted to change when her daughter was 22 years of age. So I think that gives us an insight that as parents, if first we are ready to make this shift, no matter what age your child is in, right, to be able to, bring about some difference either in the relationship with the child or in inculcating habits in our children. I think that's the first step. So the first step is for teenagers, I always recommend that uh, we need to make it we need to allow them to explore yoga themselves. When I say give them the freedom to express rather than being told that this is to be done and this is good for you. um, what they like to hear is, okay, what would you like to get out of this practice? And once we allow teenagers to start expressing and communicating what is their expectation out of a yoga program, or what is the change that they'd like to see in their personality, anything specific that they'd like to work with, then we are starting their yoga journey from the spot from where they want to begin rather than from where we want them to begin from. So, like for example, when I do sessions for the youth, which is typically 15 to 25 years, and people do write in a small piece of paper saying, okay, I expect to reduce my anger with my parents out of this program. I'm just giving you an example. So the next 10 days or 15 days, their focus is in, they want to use tools to reduce their anger because they have taken the initiative to bring change in themselves. So with young teenagers, I think the first step is to understand what is it that they would like to improve about themselves, and then provide the tools which will help them start incorporating, because then it will be driven by them rather than being driven by the parent or by us. So yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Chitra. Next question, I think, Viraj, I'll take this towards you. What is the role?
Sorry, interrupting. I just had one point to make about that. I feel that if your child is open enough to say that to you, then there's already a good communication channel that you've established with him or her. So I think you're doing things right already.
Yeah, I think it's an important point that Ambika has brought up. That if children are able to criticize and or able to express what this particular 17-year-old has told her parent that you are late on the ball, it's actually it's actually not a bad thing, because at least she was able to express this to the parent. But often we find that children are not able to express their thoughts to their parents, and that is a much more worrying situation to be in.
Hmm.
All right. Next question. I think we all of you can comment on this. So the question is, my daughter is a young teenager. What is the role of learning from friends and peer groups apart from learning from teachers and parents? That's question number one. I mean, there are several. Let me just post two. And how can we as parents encourage these collaborations and connections? Right? I think they see I think the question is, I think they see some relevance in learning from peers and their friends groups. They see some value in it. But I guess where do they encourage, and I think where to draw the line as well, right? So there is that. So Viraj, if you could comment, I know the Peepal Grove School being in a residential setup, there is an opportunity for students to collaborate with not just their peers, but also within different age groups, right? An 8-year-old can talk to a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, and also younger. So there is a lot of cross collaboration. So how do you, I mean, what are your thoughts and inputs on this? And what can parents do to encourage this, and where to draw the line?
So there are too many areas you've spoken about. Okay, it will take me. So I'll try to just deal with a few things. Okay, one is just about peer. What role, how important is our peers for teenagers, and of course the influences that you have from peers may not always be positive influences. Okay, and so parents worry about the influence from peers, and the typical situation is in which a parent or even as a teacher we see that children are getting influenced by peers, which may not necessarily be good for their growth. It may not be positive for their growth as human beings. And how do you deal with that, right? Now, in this such situations, again, it is very important that you establish a line of communication with your children, and you don't judge situations very easily. Many of us, I find, have forgotten what we were like when we were teenagers. That we were attracted to the opposite sex. We experimented with things which we were not supposed to. And today, but as parents, we become protective. I can understand where that comes from. You don't want your child to get into, to do things which they may feel sorry about, which may develop a bad reputation in them, and so on and so forth. But if you were able to, again, if you were able to calm down a little, be a little more mindful, and say that, okay, if your message to your child is that, look, this is an age when you are going to experiment, and there are some choices which you might make which may not have good consequences for you, but I'm willing to for want of a word, forgive you. Actually, there's no need to even forgive them. But I'm willing to let you experience the consequences of those choices. Of course, certain choices I don't want, where it concerns safety, where it concerns substance abuse. Of course, I don't want you to go there. But other things, other smaller things which are happening all the time with their peers, usage of abusive language, getting into groups, being mean to each other, racist comments, stuff like that, which happens all the time, particularly in middle school. I see this happening more in middle school through grade 7, 8, 9. That's the age, At that time, to not be judgmental as a parent, to be able to listen to the child, and having the belief that your child has the sense of fairness, has the intelligence to understand what is right and wrong, and will come back, will experiment, but will come back to the sense of justice which every child is born with. It does have an impact. I have seen this. It does have an impact on children.
Okay. I think maybe we can, maybe in another few minutes, we can get some viewers to unmute and ask questions. And while Alia tries to figure that out, let me ask, Chitra, you a question from our audience. My daughter is a teenager. Her emotions are a riot. Can yoga help regulate her emotions? Maybe here, if you could give her a tip. I think everyone is looking for that one or two answers. So from your experience, if you could give her a few tips.
Right, right. So, yes. So I think yoga brings that balance in the physical, mental, and emotional being of the individual. So also there are so many types of yoga. So we think that yoga is only about doing asanas, but if you see the whole picture, you have bhakti yoga, you have karma yoga, you have raja yoga. There are so many types of yoga, and each person has a different nature and different traits, right? So based on the person's interest, so if the person is, say for example, if she's an artist, or if she's inclined to painting or drawing or any of the art forms, the very practice that the your daughter can really involve herself in, that itself will lead her to a meditative state, right? So I believe when it comes to balancing emotions in the individuals, it's more about some sort of expression, right? The expression could be in the form of singing, dancing, writing poetry. Any of these creative pursuits really help in bringing about balance in the emotions of the individual at that age, rather than a structured yoga class. What I'm trying to say is we need to find that window. It could be even chanting, right? So introducing her to singing, chanting allows the person to release pent up emotions. It could be even dancing, which is movement, right? So today we are hearing a lot about movement therapy and how that is allowing people to deal with difficult emotions and stress, inbuilt stress. So I think identifying what your child truly likes and then tagging on another practice to her daily routine will really help channelize those emotions and bring in a renewed energy in her, which will help her deal with those ups and downs of the hormonal changes at this point in time.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks, Chitra. We have another 7 to 8 minutes. I think I would like to unmute some of our speakers. Sorry, not speakers, our audience, and give them an opportunity to ask questions to you directly. I think we have someone. Nidhi. Nidhi, I think you have a question.
Yeah.
Would you like to?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for a very interesting session. First of all the speakers. My question is that my kid, he is most of the time in a very playful and joyful mood. So it's very difficult for me to make him concentrate or focus on anything. So how I should deal with this?
Okay, I think,
I
I'll just, I think Nidhi, you need to be happy that your child is playful and joyful around
yes.
and not sitting with gadget. So that's a good sign. It's all about, again, channelizing that energy, because there's just a lot of energy in children today. And if you find that one thing that probably he can engage his time and effort in, it will help him deal with that excess energy that he has. So it could be even a sport. If it's not yoga, it could also be running around and playing a sport, because that also builds mindfulness to a great extent, right? Focus, all of that comes about when you're engaged in any sport. That's a little bit there. Viraj, you want to add something?
I think I think also what age is your child? If you can tell us the age, that will help us also be able to understand the situation better. Nidhi?
I think he's a 7-year-old. She's written on
7
chat.
years.
She's 7 years old, so of course she will be also expected to do certain amount of academic work and things like that. So are you also saying that that you, in your perception, that playfulness in your child is in some way hindering your child's learning, learning path? Are you implying that? Is that your concern?
I think he's not there anymore on the.
Oh.
So if that is a concern, I think some parents might have that concern. So maybe I can respond to that. See, many times uh, the way we make the child perceive learning, okay, is that learning is like a punishment and play is play. So that at a very young age, if a child thinks that anything related to studies is if a child develops a negative association with learning, when I say learning, I mean the study part of it. Okay? Because the child always wants to learn. There are many other aspects in which the child is already learning, especially a 7-year-old. But when that negative association comes, I think we as parents need to really introspect and again be mindful that we don't. It's like a vegetable, you know. Many children develop a negative association with vegetables because the parent is imposing, saying that's the good thing for you, that's the good thing for you. But research shows that if you give a child, especially younger children, the children at the age of 4 to 6, research shows that if you give a child, a platter of different kinds of vegetables, dal, pulses, everything, over a period of a week, children will automatically have a very wholesome, diet. But on one particular day, the younger children, what they do is on one particular day, they might eat only one thing, and you might get worried as a parent. Okay, oh God, they left out, the curd, or they left out the vegetable. Whereas on another day, they might go completely for another thing. But that's the child natural way, the body, the organic being that a child is exploring and will come to a balance. Now this is again related to a belief as parents in understanding that children actually they will balance things out in their lives. So
I have a point to add there. One, if it helps to know this, Swami Vivekananda, when he was a child, apparently he was a riot. And so that just means that there's so much energy and potential in that person. So that's a good thing. Secondly, to what Viraj said, adding to it, I think if, if you say that, okay, after you finish your homework, you can go play, you're already making that exercise of study a negative thing because he can have fun after he does this, right? So somewhere integrate the two and not make one compete with the other. So
absolutely,
yes.
learning can and must be fun actually. And learning, the real learning, the core of learning should be fun, meaningful, and relevant to the need of the child. Then that negative association is less likely to come up.
Yeah, it's a good point, Ambika. I've heard this all my childhood that once I finish, I can go and play. So it's a very good analogy. There are several more questions, very, very interesting and good questions. I would like to assure our viewers that we will take up all these questions and respond to you by email. I think we have time for just 2 more questions. We have one from Ahmed. I think you are already here. So if you could unmute and ask your question.
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Namaste. Thank you for this amazing portal. I'm actually going to become a stepfather soon, and to a 2-year-old. And I've been talking to the mother via Skype, and the child is crying all the time. And I've been initiated to Kriya Yoga by Babaji, Sriyam Babaji, 1 year ago. And of course, I'm doing my sadhana on a daily basis. And as you guys mentioned, that when the child will see me doing my sadhana, she's gonna like imitate me. That's one. But I'm just worried about one thing, that the child is crying all the time. So I don't know how to control that crying. She's over crying. And if you guys can give me some heads up or some good advice to that. Thank you.
Okay, shall I go first? See, I think if a child is crying, it obviously means the child is there is some element of dissatisfaction, or even in this case, since you're saying it's a father a trauma, there must be a separation, sense of separation which the child has seen, or the child is seeing some amount of, maybe the mother is still grieving. I don't know the situation. I'm just guessing. But we have had cases. For example, we have a 9-year-old boy who recently lost his father, and the mother has sent him to a boarding school. I mean, ours is a residential school. Now, after when the child first came, very intelligent child, very quick to grasp concepts, but often distracted. There were other issues which I don't even want to talk about. There was soiling in the bed and things like that were happening, which embarrassed him and all that. But instead of blaming the child or thinking something is wrong with the child, we tried to understand what was the situation, and we realized that the mother was still grieving from the loss of her husband, and the child was perceiving this, and the child was just uh, it was, different children will then it will come out in different ways for different children. Some children will openly cry. Some children, I have seen a child who lost her mother at the age of 6, and she came to our school when she was 9. Okay, and for many years she would only smile, and her elder brother was in an older class. He actually showed symptoms of grieving, so he was reacting in a completely different way to the same situation as her. She was masking it under her she learned a defense mechanism to just smile at everything and saying everything is okay, everything is fine. But you could see things were not fine because she was not doing well academically. She was not able to focus, but she's a very nice child, very good natured and all that. So what I'm just trying to say is, maybe there is some amount of grief, and the grief of a parent is definitely even felt by a 1-year-old child, forget a 2-year-old child. So if you'd like to add, or Ambika.
I don't.
Yeah, I think I don't think we have time for one more question, because uh, I mean the questions are really deep, and we will need more time to respond to them and have an interaction. So what we'll do is we will definitely take up these questions as a group, and maybe we will collectively give a response via email to all these parents. And if necessary, I think next time we could have dedicated age groups, have these discussion for a dedicated age group, so it becomes relevant for parents who have children in that age group, and discussion can be more focused. So this has been I think a good experience for all of us, as it's our first webinar. I think we have also had a opportunity to learn a lot, and I hope it was interesting for our viewers as well. Just to wrap things up, uh, I would like to give each of our panelists maybe 2 minutes as concluding comments. Viraj, if you could, give some final thoughts on maybe few takeaways that parents can keep in mind while they are interacting with kids, allowing them to teach. How can they, things that they can keep in mind while providing inputs for education. Chitra, if you could talk about mindfulness, things that parents can do for themselves. Like you said, it first starts with us, and they mimic, kids mimic what parents do. So if you could give few mindful tips to parents. And Ambika, if you could give maybe one or two tips that parents could take to children, if you could speak from a child's perspective, what is it that they are looking for, and so just some parting thoughts from each of you. 2 minutes.
Yeah. So what I would like to say is that we should be we should understand that each child is unique and has been made, is born unique, and is may have certain qualities which are similar to us because they are our children, but they will also have some very unique characteristics. And also, every child has a unique path to development. There will be similarities between children, but there will also be some areas in which your child is quite different. The time when you feel your child is lagging behind other children of their age, when you compare them with others, is the time for you as a parent to not lose belief in your child. Is the time to understand that your child may be lagging behind today, but as I pointed out earlier, look, in Finland and in Shanghai, children are learning to read and write only at the age of 7. So it's okay if your child maybe at a younger age is in some way lagging behind others. That does not in any way mean that they will be disadvantaged or will be behind others by the time they reach 10, 15, 20. So have this long-term view in mind. Your job as a parent is to be an enabler and is to be a supportive parent. Try your best through different means to relax yourself, either through yoga or through walking or through nature walks or through whatever works for you to calm yourself down so that you are able to observe your child very carefully and are able to not react to situations easily. Give the children opportunities to grow and be that parent who's always there for your child no matter what. That is the biggest gift you can actually give your child. I just want to end with one last, I just want to quote Swami Vivekananda over here. Okay? He says what makes the difference in man and man is the difference in Shraddha in himself and nothing else. Shraddha, it means belief, self belief. What makes one man great and another weak and low is this Shraddha in himself. Right? If we want this Shraddha to be increased in our child, then what really that child requires is one adult, one significant adult who believes in this child. Believes in the child even in times when others don't believe in them. This is very important.
Thanks, Viraj. Very, very good point. A very powerful message. Chitra.
Yeah. So I think I have shared quite a bit of information about yoga and all of that. But when it comes to mindfulness, I think it all begins with first self-care. You know, as parents today, if we can take that first step towards spending time in reflection, introspection, meditation, any of these activities, there begins our journey of transformation in terms of our parenting, and all the other things trickle down from there. So finding that time for yourself and embracing this new way of life, because yoga is brings about transformation in the way of life itself, right? So whether it comes to lifestyle, nutrition, especially in the age of fast food and instant gratification and all of these things, I think once we embrace this lifestyle, then automatically all the other aspects of mindfulness starts falling into place. So whether it's with your children, with the way we handle situations, difficult situations, all of those things come. We become more confident in dealing with those situations. The other thing is yoga also teaches us, these mindfulness practices helps us become less judgmental. Very often the situations become turbulent because we are all the time judging everybody and including our children. So learning to let go of perfection, right? All the time looking for perfection in everything around us. So when we start practicing yoga, the first thing that we learn as individuals is we are not perfect ourselves, right? So we are unable to do asanas. And somewhere down the line, we learn to accept those flaws in our own self, right? And when we begin there, we automatically start accepting the flaws in others, becoming more tolerant and accepting. And over a period of time, I think a sense of gratitude also comes about in our relationships. So I think being consistent as a parent, being mindful of what you engage in, because again, going back to the statement that lead by example. So you are their role models. So if you don't do and you just keep preaching, nobody's going to follow it. So please practice whatever you're trying to inculcate in your child, and then have fun with your child. I think that's very important. Like Viraj said, being playful, go ahead, play with them, bond with them, sing with them, dance with them, do all the activities so the connection becomes stronger, the bond becomes stronger.
Thank you. Thanks, Chitra. Ambika?
Yeah. So I think you asked me about the child's perspective. I think to begin with, we've all been kids. We all know what we liked as a child and what we didn't like. So try to keep in mind to not do what you didn't like your parents doing to you. So that's a good starting point. And the second bit is, and this is something that I believe in, that if if you're doing things that you like doing, which is like some of the points that Viraj said, even what Chitra said, if you like to go for a walk, if you like doing yoga, if you like to paint, do that. And the kids will join you in the activity. So take care of yourself as well, and which means you don't go out of your way to just do things for them and then kind of be like, oh, that little time that I have to do this for my child. But do things for yourself and bond with them in that thing, the activity that gives you joy as well. So that's my.
Good. Thank you. Thank you to all our panelists. Summarizing your last points as key takeaways for me and for our listeners as well. I think Viraj, from you, I think the focus is on Shraddha. I think that was your key message. So Shraddha, belief in ourselves, and also belief in the child under all circumstances. So knowing that one parent is behind the child at all times. And Chitra, the art of letting go, I guess that's what you're alluding at, and self-care. I think that's very important, where we are able to, where the parent is, takes care of themselves, like we hear in the flight as well, right? First, take care of yourself and then the passenger next to you. And Ambika, where you mentioned that as parents, let us start doing things that we enjoy, and then make it so interesting and let it be infectious to our to our children. And as much as possible, not do things that we didn't like as kids. So I think that itself is a major battle one. So
one point. Sorry for.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just that I think many of us here are probably meditators or practitioners of yoga, to not make that like a thing, that we judge, or the scale to judge everyone with. It's fine if, if in your meditation time you have to prioritize something else, it's okay. Like for your child, right? So that shouldn't become a thing that you weigh the scale with, weigh the world with. So
I think very important point, Ambika, because I think when our child, especially when our child is very young, 0 to 2, that age group, there are times when you can't afford to be in meditation because your child needs you immediately, or your wife needs your help. As a man, I'm saying, right? And the wife needs that support from you. You can't say, no, this is my meditation time, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. You need to be available for your child. That is also very important part of what your child needs at that time, is, I think, supersedes our needs, I believe.
Yeah. Good. So thank you, everyone. And on that note, let's conclude today's talk, and we will get back to all the other questions that we were unable to answer. And hopefully in our next session, we are able to bring some more interesting points to all of you. And we'll also have an interesting panel next time to take a wide range of questions. Thank you. Wish you all a good evening and a wonderful weekend.
Bye. Thank you.